Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the REDARC Tow-Pro Elite trailer brake controller here on our 2015 Toyota 4Runner. So there's many brake controller options out there for the 4Runner. This certainly isn't the only one, but in my mind this is the best overall brake controller specifically for this vehicle. For starters, the Tow-Pro Elite actually installs underneath the dash there. So unlike a traditional brake controller, you're going to have this large bulky box that gets mounted up under the dash there. That does a couple different things. Number one, it requires that we drill into the dash. And number two, it's going to take up some precious leg room, which we just simply don't have in some of these newer vehicles. A lot of people constantly bang their knees getting in and out of the vehicle on those bulky brake controllers. But with the REDARC here, it's going to be mounted underneath the dash there, a nice sleek install. You don't have to worry about sacrificing any legroom. Something else that's very unique about this brake controller is in regards to the operating modes. So usually an electric trailer brake controller is either going to be a time delay or a proportional. Now the proportional is a little bit better of a design in my mind, but there is still a use for the time delay. Luckily with this one here, you don't have to worry about choosing between the two because it has both of those modes of operation. A proportional operation means it's going to apply the brakes in the trailer in an amount that sort of mirrors that of the vehicle we're driving. So if we really slam on the brakes, it's going to send a lot of force to the trailer, as opposed to if we're just gently pressing on them, it's not going to lock them up in the trailer. We're just going to come to a smooth, slow stop. Now in the contrary, we have a time delay controller, or a user controlled method is what REDARC refers to that as. They're pretty much the same thing. And how that works is it's going to be applying the brakes in the trailer to an amount that we set here in the vehicle on the controller, regardless of how hard we're pressing the brake pedal. Now that mode there is really going to be used for you off-road towers, so if you do a lot of towing off-road, you're certainly going to like that feature. But for most daily driving, you're going to be using the proportional mode. In regards to trailer compatibility, there really isn't anything you need to worry about here. It's going to accommodate trailers with up to 3 axles, which is more than enough here for our 4Runner. And if we have any boat trailers or trailers that have electric over hydraulic conversions, a lot of brake controllers actually don't like those actuators, so they don't play well together. However, thankfully the REDARC does work with those. So if we have one of those trailers with an actuator allowing us to convert from electric to disc brakes, then thankfully we're going to be able to use those because our controller is going to play well. So here's our remote head. We talked about most of the components of the braking system being installed under the dash here. There is one thing that gets mounted outside, and that's our remote head. And this is pretty much how we control all of our settings here. It's just a nice little dial here. We can turn to increase the braking force sent to the trailer, and then clockwise to decrease the braking force. So really, we're just going to be fine-tuning our setup when we're out driving on the road. If you feel like the trailer is dragging a little bit, maybe let off the brakes a little bit. Or if you feel like the trailer is pushing the vehicle more, maybe turn the brakes up a little bit. It's really all going to be tailored towards your specific setup. It's very easy to adjust. So in order to switch between modes, the proportional and the user control, this is very simple. Now, first of all, the blue LED light is going to indicate we're in the proportional mode. But if we want to switch over to the user control mode, you want to make sure that the dial is set at 0, press the brake pedal, and then immediately click the remote head twice. Now we're going to see a green LED, and that's going to indicate we're in the user controlled mode. And to switch back, just that same thing in reverse, press the brake pedal, hit the remote head twice. Now touching a bit more on the light colors, now if we turn this to increase the gain, and then we press the brake pedal with our trailer attached, we should see that blue light change from blue, sort of purplish, and then to red. That lets us know the brakes are being applied in our trailer. So we got our trailer hooked up, pressing the brakes, we can see the color changing. So that's pretty much it for the light colors. I wouldn't get hung up in too much of that stuff. There's some easy quick access guides in your owner's manual if you want to know more about that. There'll also be some different light colors and flashing sequences if we have any arrow codes, but really no need to explain all that. For the most part, you guys really shouldn't run into any issues. But then finally with the remote head here, we're going to have our manual override control. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. If you've ever towed a trailer with electric brakes, and in order to apply that, we're just going to simply press the remote head down, and that's going to activate our manual override. We can obviously increase or decrease the gain, which also changes the light colors. In regards to installation, we can really make this as hard as we want to or as easy as we want to. And what I mean by this is, If we purchase the additional adapters that we talked about, the adapter harness and that dash plug there, it's going to make this very, very simple. Going to give us a very factory-like look. There's going to be no drilling whatsoever, no modifications, no splicing. So you guys are going to be paying a little bit money for the brake controller. I recommend you shell out a bit more so we can obtain those additional accessories just to overall make our experience that much more pleasurable. So the first step of our installation, we need to locate the factory brake controller port under the dash here. Now this is going to be located under the dash, under this panel here, to the left of the emergency brake pedal. If we look at this little kick panel here, directly behind this, we're going to have a large wiring harness bundle. And actually taped to this wiring harness bundle is going to be our brake controller plug. Now we've already went ahead and cut the tape there just so we could pull this down to give you a better view. But it's just simply going to be a pigtail that's sort of tied into that main bundle. And this is actually the factory brake controller plug here. It's going to be a white rectangular connector. Just like shown, we got about a 5 or 6 inch lead coming from the main harness. We're going to take our adapter harness. Keep in mind this is sold separately because this is a vehicle specific component, but we do offer this here at eTrailer. But this is going to have 2 ends. This black rectangular connector here is going to go to the brake controller, and this white rectangular connector here is going to go to the factory tow package port that we just located. Let's go ahead and go back under the dash now and plug the 2 ends together. We should hear an audible click when they're locked into place securely. Only goes in one way, so it should be pretty simple. And there we go. You're going to see we have this end here, which we told you it plugs into the back of the brake controller. And now we have this white wire, which is for a ground. So this particular vehicle here does require an additional ground on the brake controller harness. So it's got the ring terminal pre-installed for us. We have a couple different options for attaching this. We could take a self-tapping screw and just screw it into the body anywhere in there that we have bare metal. Or we can find an existing stud or screw and use that. And in the effort of not drilling any new holes in the vehicle, I think that's what we're going to do. I've actually found a bolt we can use. It's sort of behind this panel here. It's kind of hard to see. But I'm going to take a 10mm socket. I'm going to remove that bolt. And then I'm just going to simply use that to resecure our ground wire. So there's that bolt I was talking about. But now that I have it removed, I'm just going to simply place it over the stud like so, and then resecure. Now that we have the ground wire secure, we're going to take our brake controller unit here and simply just plug it into the plug here. Well, it should only go in one way, just like that. We'll hear it click when it's locked into place. We're going to have one more harness on the other end. It's going to go there. So it should be pretty easy to identify this wire out of your kit. And there is 2 different ends. You want to make sure you just grab the one that matches up with that. Pretty self-explanatory, only goes in one way. You hear it click when it's locked into place. But there we go. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount this unit here. Now we can really mount this anywhere under the dash. It doesn't matter about the orientation. We do need to make sure, however, that it's secure, that it's not going to be bouncing around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 long zip ties, and I'm going to secure this module here to the main wiring harness that we pulled the brake controller port away from earlier in the video, if you remember that. So we're just going to simply tie it to there. It's a nice sturdy wiring harness, not going to be moving. And I want to go ahead and make sure, it doesn't matter which end faces up or which end faces down, just make sure you can still have access to this once you get it mounted. So we'll go ahead and give you a closer view of that under the dash now. Now that you can see it's nice and secure, I'll go ahead and cut the remaining slack for those zip ties. And now we'll do a little bit of wire management here with this dangling wire. For this harness here, the bottom end that attaches to the brake controller that goes into the factory brake controller port, I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to actually tuck it behind this panel here. We should have plenty of room, and that's going to do a great job of making sure our wire doesn't get caught up in our brake pedals or anything like that. We really only have one final connection, and that's the other end of this harness here with that square white/gray connector. And this actually goes to the back of our control knob. So this is what our control knob looks like. You can see it just easily plugs into the back there. But before we do that, we need to find a place to mount this. Now we have quite a few different options, but for this vehicle here, the best one and the one I highly recommend is to utilize this little switch insert here, or we have a couple up here as well. Chances are one of these is going to be unused on your vehicle, because REDARC actually makes a plug-in switch insert that's specifically designed for this panel here, and it'll allow you to mount the controller without any drilling whatsoever. So now that we have the wire run through the opening in our dash, we're going to take the vehicle specific bezel here. We're going to take our remote head and we're going to insert this through the back of the bezel. Should really only fit one way. I believe if I try to turn it, yeah, you can see it doesn't really fit. So it's only going to go in one way. And once I have that in there, what I'm going to do next is, in your kit here, you're going to get this clear plastic with threads on the end. So this is actually going to go over the remote head knob, and this is going to be used to secure it to the switch panel insert. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this by hand. You want to make sure you don't tighten it too tight. Just going to try that out. And then we're going to rotate this all the way to the left or counterclockwise. And then we're going to take our actual remote head here. We're going to make sure we get the mark that says 0, and we're going to align that with the hole at the top. So I'll try to do this so you guys can see it a little bit better. So just align it with the 0 at the top, and then just simply press fit it. And now what we want to do is we want to do a little function test here. Basically, we should be able to depress this so it clicks. You can hear that nice audible click, and it does feel pretty good. If you can't quite depress this all the way, you'll need to go ahead and tighten that nut a little bit more down. But aside from that, that's pretty much what we're going to be looking for. So it's at 0 now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our connector here and just plug it into the back of the remote head. Should hear it lock into place. Now I'm going to feed that extra wire back up into the dash here. And I should just be able to press that insert back into the original position, and it'll lock into place. There we have it. Really the only thing left to do is to get out on the road, and we need to calibrate this unit. And that's done pretty simply. We just need to make about 20 stops or so. When it's calibrating, the flashing LEDs are going to be blue and green. And when it's calibrated, it's going to be solid blue. So just get out on the road there, make a couple quick stops, head down to the gas station or something. Just let the unit calibrate until you see those solid blue lights. But after that's done, that's pretty much going to do it today for your look and installation of the REDARC Tow-Pro Elite trailer brake controller here on our 2015 Toyota 4Runner.